Cache-maniacs.
GeoGearHeads.
Welcome to GeoGearHeads. This is episode 230, and tonight we're talking about planning trips. I'm the bad cop with my host, Daryl W4. And Daryl, we've got some special ladies with us tonight.
We do. Some of the best planners that we could come up with are on the show with us tonight. And first off, we'll introduce Shermanator18 again.
Hello again.
And it's
How's
good
it
to have you
going?
back.
Yes, thanks.
And you're fresh from your international travels.
Yes, technically I am. I went to Canada today.
And your first Canadian cache.
Yes, first one.
Did it end with the letter A? Being Canadian?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
And then we also have Shorty Knits with us again. Welcome back.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So we're talking about just trip planning in general, but probably the first thing we want to talk about is actually how the two of you pick out your caches, what it is that you're actually targeting on these travels. And I know that for me, changes quite a bit, but Shermanator18, you just did this trip to Canada. That doesn't sound like it was all that intense, because it was a day trip, and mostly to go to Canada for a cache, as I understand.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, actually, I went today because Doc Firewoman was in New York for some sort of conference or something, so I decided to go meet up with her. And neither of us have found a cache in Canada, so we decided just to hop right over the border and get a couple, and it was really fun.
So kind of the impromptu caching thing.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. Well, when you are going on bigger trips, what are some of the criteria that you actually look for in the selection of those caches?
Right now, for me at least, I'm looking for caches that fill spots in my Jasmer grid, and other really old caches, like the oldest in a specific state, things like that. That's what I'm trying to fill out right now.
All right. And Shorty Knits, what are your picks for caches?
Yeah, I do the same thing. I think it depends on what the purpose of the trip is. For example, spring break, Scott Burks and I took our kids on a road trip to Florida. And so with 3 kids under 12, we had to be very selective in our stops. So our goals for that one were virtuals and webcams, and then any very favorited points like must-dos along the way. But if it's more of a local trip, then yeah, it's things to meet challenges or highly favorited, that sort of thing.
And then Chris, we've done a few trips together.
Mm-hmm.
First one was the virtual cache run, so that was kind of obvious. We went and just all of the virtual caches in Toledo were our target.
Didn't even take a pencil with me.
No, it was kind of cool. Actually, we did find a couple of traditionals, as I recall, but it was almost all virtuals and webcam.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there
Earth
was
cache.
a Earth cache too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, that was kind of obvious as we were looking at all the virtuals, and the webcam was like right by your parents' house, I think.
Yes, it was. That's right. It was on a major street. Yeah, right near my parents' house.
And it was one that you had tried a couple of times before, and it wasn't working for whatever reason. So
exactly.
That was our primary, our first target, and then the rest of them were just kind of fell into place. And then we did the caching to Geo Woodstock, which is the way I normally look for caches on a trip, which is simply what's an easy on-off so that I can claim a cache while I'm driving without creating too much of a delay.
Well, actually, we did stop. We actually stopped the car for caches. We weren't caching while driving.
Yeah. Well, and most of those were at the rest areas.
Exactly.
Which, when you're on that kind of trip, that's the best thing ever.
Exactly. It's a quick on-off, You're going to need to use a rest area anyway, so
exactly.
Plan a stop. It helps you if you're looking to grab a state, or just looking to fill out a challenge, or just to add to your numbers. They're usually easy caches.
Right. But that's usually what I do is just simply what's a quick easy on off along the route, and I simply go into GC, geocaching, and create the route and pull it up on the map and go scrolling through and say, this is a rest area. There's a cache here. Okay, I'm going to grab this one. But do you have any other criteria that you use during trips?
Well, I do appreciate cache owners that have caches near the freeways, and in the description they say this cache is not accessible from the freeway. Right in there. So, even though it could be within a quarter mile, tenth of a mile of the freeway, and you go, wow, that should be easy. It's always handy to look at the description and see, is it truly accessible from the freeway? If the cache owner was kind enough to let you know that.
Sure, and that takes a lot of time just scrolling through, finding all of the caches, finding what's actually accessible. And there are some of the trips that I've done where I'm looking for a specific type of cache, and I'll go drill in and see what are some of the favorites in that area, and that's changed with the way that geocaching.com search works now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I really haven't done a whole lot of that since it's changed. I'm wondering if there might be a better way now than what I had done before. So I don't want to get too much into that.
I was going to say, I think we have two people here who might be able to answer that.
Yeah, and I know that Jesse is always praised on every show Scott's on for being really, really good at doing this. So any tips that you can share with us, Shorty Knits?
So no pressure there, Jesse.
Right. For searching.
Yeah, for locating the targets that you want, whether it be for those challenges or whatever that might be.
Yeah, I mean, for like a long distance road trip, usually what I'll do is bring up a map of, zoom in as close as I can on my beginning and ending point and bring up only virtuals or only webcams or only, specific types if that's what I'm looking for. But then also, Project GC has great searches for favorite points. You can sort by favorite points. You can search, only states or only counties, only regions, that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, I go back and forth between all of the different search options, and then kind of pick and choose a little bit from here and a little bit from there.
Well, and as I recall from some of the conversations with you and Scott, many times the caches actually determine the route you'll travel.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's this cache that's, we'll say 20 miles out of the way that you really want something about it, whether it's a webcam and you just want to grab webcams, or it has some date or terrain rating or something that you need.
Mm-hmm.
You'll go through all of that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, usually the caches come first and then the route gets planned around that, unless, like spring break, obviously we didn't do it that way. But yeah, like last year when we were working more on our Illinois counties and DeLorme pages, the caches really is what I planned our route around.
Right, and definitely if you're doing something like trying to achieve that,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be all about the caches, so the caches are definitely going to dictate the route.
Right.
But for the regular travels, it's more about, I guess, finding the caches that are along the route and maybe just a little bit off to see if they're worth doing.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, you have to decide that, I think, before you start planning. You have to say, what are our goals? How far off of our designated route are we willing to travel? What's our time limit? Because that can play a big part if you have, I mean, I'm famous for turning a 5-hour drive into 15, 17, 19 even.
Yeah, Team Avenue says geocaching while traveling, when turning a 3-hour trip into a 4-day trip.
Absolutely. So easy to do. So you have to set those limits before you even start planning.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Limax says he used to drive a lot to the LA basin for work, so he did a lot of caching up and down I-5, but he tends to still just load caches along the route and then cache by the seat of his pants. And I admit to doing that many, many times because it's just a great way for, when you're doing these work road trips or when you're not sure if you're going to have caches available, it's a good way to go and do that one. And then Team Avidue also says, planning trips, perving on maps, strolling through different caching websites to determine the best places to go, finding out if there's already caches at the local cemeteries, and trying to find a way to keep the kids happy while I'm doing my hobby. And, of course, going through the list of Maltese puzzles to figure out if I'm smart enough to determine what the blank he's going to do with the various questions. Yeah, so, yeah, I'm going to leave that one at that. Well, and that's actually another good thing that we should probably mention with Project GC is, especially now that challenge caches have been reinstated, you can use the, if you're a premium member, the map checker, challenge map checker there, and see which caches you might qualify for the challenges there.
Exactly. And that's a premium member with project-gc.com.
Correct, yeah. And then Team Avidue also says geocaching.com search for all the results that are totally not relevant to your search. I do admit I ran into that today. But Sydney, what do you think about that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I kind of do the same thing. Recently, I've more been using Project GC because I was planning my trip for Geo Woodstock, and I noticed that the Cache Along a Route Pocket Query has a 500-mile limit, and I was traveling almost like 1,500 or more, so I was going to have to make at least 4 pocket queries just to get the route there. So Project GC, if you're a premium member, they have a routing option, and you could basically just create your route. There's no mileage limit, and then you can use that route with all their different tools, like the top favorited caches or the hidden month. You can search for hidden months along that route, or caches that fill your difficulty or terrain ratings along that route as well. So you can basically use it with most of their tools that they have on the site.
And there is still some relevance to not using Project GC and just doing this stuff right on geocaching.com with the routes or whatever. And one of the things that I've mentioned a number of times, and I think, Jesse, you've done this as well, is you'll go through that route and then you cherry pick the caches you want to do and put them into a bookmark list. So in that way you can get as many miles as you want. You just have to add the more and more caches, and I think the limit is still 1,000 for the bookmark list. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and then you can load that as a pocket query, or some of the apps actually load right from lists, so you don't have to do even a pocket query. But Limax had asked if pocket queries are still superior to the geocaching.com search. As we get puzzled looks.
It depends on what you're looking for.
Yeah, it really does. I don't think there's a yes or no answer to that. I agree.
Yeah, and that was kind of what I was thinking. For some things, the pocket queries don't do anything like what you want. If you're looking for those favorite points, for example, there's no favorite points supported in the pocket queries. But if I remember, there's no support for attributes in the geocaching search.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I'm thinking I have to go look this up now.
Interesting.
I don't think there is, but Project GC has some new, really powerful search options, and I think that it's only for premium members. So they have some advanced searches, and you can search. Oh, that's not where it was. I just saw that's not where it was. I just brought it up. I thought that was where you could search for attributes, but it's not. Maybe that's under filters.
I think it is under filters.
Custom filters that you can search by attribute.
Right. Now I'm looking at the search at geocaching.com, and there is no attribute search yet. I think they were talking about it coming, but it's not here. And we'll have Ben on the show to tell us more about that later. So we'll worry about that in the future. But yeah, the Project GC is really becoming that destination for all of this planning. It seems they've been building out that site, and it's just an incredible tool for everything you need to do your trips now.
Yes, without a doubt. And I do like Limax's comment. So basically, you have to do a pocket query and a geocaching.com search, and then construct a Venn diagram.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
Exactly right.
quite honestly, that's kind of what I'm doing with the bookmark list. Even when I'm going through creating that route and individually going through, I'm cherry picking them, but it's kind of the same thing. You're comparing two different searches and dropping it in.
And I oftentimes do all of that, plus have a paper map in front of me on the desk.
A paper map. Now, what is this? What is
Yeah,
this paper map you speak of?
I know. They have pages. You turn.
Yes, but
Wow.
are all the roads on there?
Are there geocaches on those maps?
They are when I mark them.
I seem to recall doing that with the Lorm pages. But in any
That's
case.
exactly what I'm talking about.
Limax says from home to Boise, around 650 miles. He had to make 4 pocket queries along the route because he was running up against the pocket query limit as opposed to the distance limit.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
But he also still uses the paper maps. He said, Team Avidue actually said that he just downloads all of the caches for a state and then let your own tools deal with it. I'm assuming like GSAC. And yes, I'm downloading every few months 17 pocket queries to get them from New South Wales. Is that NSW, I think?
Yes,
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Or that's not safe for work. I can't remember.
No, there should be an F in there if that were the case. So maybe it's now safe for work? No, because I still need an F.
Still need the F. I have that list for all of New York. I download every single cache and put it in GSAC, but then if I go out of New York, then I don't have it because I'm not going to keep a running total of every single cache in neighboring states on my GSAC account.
Now, Sydney, you were saying that you actually like the furcot.com site, and last time you were on, Jesse, you mentioned that one as well.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think that's where I heard about it was from you guys.
Yeah, it takes some getting used to, I think, just in finding where all the features are, but it has anything that you could possibly need on a trip.
Well, and it's not designed for geocaching. It's actually designed for people taking like a road trip, if I understand the site correctly.
I think so, but it also has trails and off-road maps as well, which is kind of neat. So, I mean, I think it has, like trails, hiking trails.
Really?
Yeah. That's very cool. I could definitely see you doing like an Appalachia Trail kind of thing using that then.
I didn't know it had those. Now I got to go look again.
I think so. I mean, I haven't messed with that part of it. I've only ever done a road trip with it, but if I remember correctly, I saw that you could actually do off-road.
Very cool. Well, Sydney, since you had some notes in here about Furcot and how you use that, let's go through that real quick.
Sure. Well, like I said, I've been planning my trip to Geo Woodstock, which for me is going to be multiple days because it's at least a 24-hour drive from my house. So if you are planning a trip that's going to take multiple days, you can put in your starting and finishing locations, and then based on the times that you want to start and stop driving for the day, it will automatically pick out like where you should stop to sleep for the night based on those times. So that's something I thought was really interesting.
And this is Furcot, Furkot.com, which is just a website. There's no software or anything to download. I don't think there's even apps for your phone. Am I correct?
No, I think you just go to the website on your phone's browser, and it kind of turns into an app. Right. You can kind of use it like an app.
Or whatever they call it, yeah.
Yeah.
And then Limax wants to know if you're able to add your own waypoints to Furcot.
Yes. You can import a GPX file.
Which means you can take those pocket queries and drop them in there.
Ooh.
So how does that actually work?
Paved roads and off-road trails. I'm sorry, but I'm just messing around here on the site, and it shows off-road trails and unpaved roads.
Nice.
So is that going to give you, say, the trailhead that you're looking for to start your hike?
I don't know.
Okay. And if you're on a road trip, you're really not looking to take a hike, are you?
Maybe.
Now, people in the car may tell you to take a hike. That's
You might
completely
be
different.
if you're going for a jasmer.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I'll find
Yeah,
out.
if you're on a geocaching trip, it would make sense that you might want to do that.
Mhm.
You know, especially if there's like that really old cache that you want to do, like Tunnel of Light. What's the it was Iron Horse was the cache up there. That's the old cache near
Correct.
the yeah.
And it's
So-
still active.
Right, so I could see where, okay, I'm going to be driving through this area. I really want to hit this,
Mhm.
but what are the other caches along that trail so that I can hit those?
There are several on that trail.
Right, yeah, and I could see that being a handy feature of.
One in the middle of the tunnel. You got to walk a mile into the tunnel to find this one.
Ooh. See, and I didn't get to go in the tunnel at all. I'm very
Aw.
sad.
Daryl, come on back out.
I know, I do. I want to come back out. That's okay.
I'll
Renee
take you
wants me
into
to
a
go
tunnel
work for,
and turn off your flashlight.
I might turn it off myself,
Okay.
It's okay, though, because Renee wants me to go work for geocaching.com anyway.
There you go.
I want to do that.
They have plenty of job listings.
Mm-hmm.
Just go up there and check it out.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Shorty, that you were checking out the unpaved trails.
Yeah, that's as far as I got.
Oh, okay.
I just found the button that says show unpaved roads and off-road trails, and I'm trying. They have like community routes, if I'm not mistaken, on this as well, and so that's what I'm trying to find right now, and I can't remember where it was on there. So I was trying to find like a hiking route or something to see if I can bring one up if it would show on the.
Would community routes be routes that somebody else has made already?
Mhm.
And that are available, so much like the
Every trail.
caches along a route.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to think of the terminology there, and it's escaped me.
That you can make public.
The
for other people.
public, yeah.
There you go. There you
A
go.
public directory, I think maybe they call it, but yeah.
Mhm.
And that's the other thing is if you're looking for something like we'll say Route 66, there's a bunch of the already chopped up like 400-mile segments or whatever it is in there, so that you can go and create your pocket queries nice and easy. I think there's even one for the ET Highway in there, if I remember correctly when I looked back at that a couple of years ago. So people have already done that legwork for you. You don't have to do anything but do a quick search and say, give me this as a pocket query.
Would that work anymore, Daryl? Aren't there over 1,000 caches on the ET Highway now?
It's multiple bits.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I just went on fur coat, however you say that. We need an expert to tell us how to say that. I went on their how-to, and they have a plot off-road tracks. It says select places you want to visit, and Fur Coat will do the heavy lifting of calculating the best route according to your preferences. You can change the mode of travel for a part of your trip to include a walk around the city landmarks or a bike ride on a former railroad bed.
Ooh.
Wherever there is a mapped feature, a road, a bike track, or a hiking trail, Fur Coat will use it according to your mode of travel.
Nice.
Wow.
There you go.
Now, Shorty Knits, I want to let you know that's the difference between men and women right there. You actually went and read the instructions. We will never do that.
It was an accident, but yeah.
Oh, got it. Well, Butterfly Gal says, or girl, Butterfly Girl, I think, says in a complaint tone, we must make this sound very upset. When she uses Furcut, it usually wants her to stop for lodging before she wants to, as she has more caches she wants to do that day.
What time did you set your end of day? I think what does it default to, Sydney? Do you know? Is it early? You have to set
I want to say like
11:59.
I'm not sure. I don't remember. But yeah, you'd have to go in and change that because during the summer the sun's going to be out at 9 o'clock or whatever, so you could still be out and about if you wanted to.
Especially if you go more north.
Well, and one of the interesting things about the Furcut that I've never played with, and I'm really anxious to try it at some point, I had gone in and created like spreadsheets with the time between caches, and then I'll allocated, like 5 minutes or something, and that way when we're going down the list of caches on the route, we could update the times or just even look at it and say, okay, if we're not done with this cache by this time, we have to skip the next one. And then have multiple levels of caches. But FERCOT takes care of a lot of that planning on time for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, absolutely. You can put in how long you expect to stay at a stop, and then it'll calculate all your times out for you, and then you can go and see if you're on schedule or ahead of schedule or what.
Mm-hmm.
Now, have either of you actually used the option to change your mode of transportation using FERCOT? So, for instance, there's a cache you're going to have to hike to, maybe, even just 15, 20 minutes. Do you do that, or do you just allocate more time at that particular stop on your route?
Yeah, I haven't played with that feature yet. I just discovered how to do it.
Because you read the rule book.
Because I read the manual, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I did exactly that. If I knew that there was going to be, a longer trek involved at a certain cache, then I would just allocate more time for that one.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I do as well. Just allocate, an estimate about how much time you think you're going to be there.
I'm so anxious to play with FERCOT. I just need a trip to actually do it. And right now I don't even know.
Daryl?
Yeah, I'm not driving out there.
You gonna drive all the way to Washington?
Yeah, I had actually done the planning one time, and I want to say it's like 3.5 days of driving to do that.
Yeah, but what better chance to get to know this software?
True, but it would probably take me a week each way.
Just plan a local trip.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things is we've got some events and whatnot, usually like on the other side of the state, and I plan on using this for that. But the trouble is, most of those travel the same route that I take to get to Chicago, and I've done that trip so many times I've killed all of those caches.
Mm-hmm.
Who's in Chicago?
I don't know.
The Bears.
Oh.
Limehack says he's itching for a road trip, and work is going to prevent me from doing that. Yeah, I know that problem pretty well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm anxious just to get some experience with FERCOT because I haven't done that, and it sounds like it's going to make all of this planning so much easier than what I'd gone through in the past.
Or even just go in and create an imaginary trip that maybe someday you might take.
Our dream trip. We're
there you go.
Plan
you
the
can just
caches.
look at it and.
Right, we're gonna go plan the caches around like the Big Island. You do Hawaii caching.
There you go.
Dreams. Chris, why don't we take a little break from this conversation and go to Super Ted's email?
In other words, get out of the fantasy world, get back into the real world.
Exactly.
Super Ted sent us an email. He says, thanks for another good randomized show last week. I continue to marvel at how you find new material to discuss each week. Well done. And let me interject. Daryl does the majority of the work. Daryl should get all the credit. Daryl, take a bow.
Thank you. Hey, but I love the randomized shows because that's where we get to stick all those weird little things that pop up in between, like all that GPS news.
Exactly. I mean,
which
come
probably
on,
bores the pants off of people, but
we
feel like we have to talk about
rockets. How cool is that?
I know, rockets and satellites and stuff in space.
Science. It's rocket science.
And stuff blowing up in space.
Oh, yeah.
Well, not really. Burning up. Okay, fine.
Super Ted continues. You discussed whether we plan our holiday destination first and then explore potential geocaches, or the other way around. I normally plan a holiday first and then look for what caches are available. I've only 1 month left of my Jasmer challenge to complete, September 2000. There's a blog post he refers to. There are only 2 such caches available in Europe, one in Denmark and one in Finland. I was on the verge of arranging a special trip to Denmark to complete my Jasmer when an opportunity arose for me to go to Helsinki. I have another hobby of trying to have a pint of Guinness in every European capital city. It's not a bad hobby to get into. With my next destination chosen at random by the person who pours me the Guinness. That's brilliant. I love it. I was in Paris last month when Helsinki was picked out of the hat. Excellent. Now all I have to do is find out how to get to the cache site about an hour north of Helsinki. There seems to be a good bus service which goes pretty close to the cache. Perfect.
Nice. I like this one.
I've never considered that, having a beer in a capital city and then having the person who pours the beer choose the next capital city.
Jesse, I'm thinking this is something that you and Scott need to adopt. You have to have a glass of Supper Club in every capital city.
I think that that sounds like a lot of fun.
Not practical, but a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Someday. We'll put that on our someday list. It's very long.
That could be a lot of fun, though. There's people who do like the cheeseburger summit. Is that what it's called? Where
Yes.
they do the cheeseburgers at the top of.
They summit a cheeseburger.
Yes. So there's
Or
that
hamburger.
kind of
I can't
stuff,
remember what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it had to be a cheeseburger, but I could be wrong.
Does it
What if
matter?
you don't like cheese?
Then you fake it.
Don't climb mountains. Obviously.
Maybe then you have to do like the
Tofu
Tony
cheese.
dog. Tofu cheese is still kind of a cheese.
Tofu cheese.
Yeah,
That
that
doesn't
makes you
even
want to
say-
stop hiking right there.
Yeah.
Can I eat tofu cheese?
Anyway. But yeah, I think that does talk back to where we started this off with, picking the topic or picking the caches, as it depends on the type of trip, and it's a lot different if you're doing a caching trip than if you're caching along your trip.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep, definitely.
Well,
So-
did we ask our guests if they plan their destination based on caches? Just what the email said?
I was just going to ask that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mind reader. Wow.
Yeah, I definitely do. Like Scott and I say, okay, we have a lot going on with our 3 boys and work and school and everything else that we do. And so we literally like plan out our year in advance at the beginning of the year and say, okay, we have this weekend and that weekend and this weekend. So where are we going? What are the trips we want to do? So one of the trips that we were going to do last year and have to postpone, hopefully we'll be able to get it in this year, is a trip to Minnesota, North Dakota, and South Dakota, so that we can get those states. So, yeah.
Yeah,
so
do that in the
obviously-
summer.
Yeah,
Those are not good winter states.
right. Yeah. So, and then also on our trip to Florida, we had to drive the extra hour to get a cache in South Carolina. Otherwise, that would be literally the only state on the whole eastern side of the United States, other than New England, that we didn't have. So that hour was a must-do. There was no question.
But your destination was already chosen, correct? You're going to Florida for another reason.
Yes.
And so you added time to get caches.
Correct.
But have you gone to a location just to get a cache?
Yeah, absolutely. We
Okay.
did a trip to Alabama last year just to go to do the GPS maze exhibit.
Okay.
So.
Well, I seem to recall conversations about, I think it was a Jasmer Challenge run where you were doing like a 2-day trip, and it was all about finding the caches to fill the Jasmer Challenge and then filling it in with other cool caches.
Yeah, well, Nebraska and Mingo, when we went to GeoCoin Fest last year, and then we were just right there to Mingo. That was our perfect excuse. So that was our vacation. It was definitely planned around caching.
So how long does it take you to do some of that planning? Is it something that happens in a weekend, or do you take several weeks?
It's never enough time. No matter how much time you spend planning, it is never enough time. And unfortunately, this past year, I went back to school, so I work full time, I'm in school full time, and then obviously family obligations and social life and other things. So my planning time is what has been cut very short. So, for example, our trip to Florida, I had very good intentions to plan it out in great detail, like I'm known to do, and that didn't happen. It was 11 o'clock at night, the night before we're leaving, and I'm in front of the computer going, oh wait, no, I got to see what's on this leg of the trip. What are we going to stop for here? And I literally didn't know what we were going to stop for. So, yeah, so it's never enough planning time.
So whatever the available time is, you need at least twice of that to do your planning.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And Sydney, what about you for the trip versus cash thing?
Well, a lot of times if I'm planning a trip specifically for geocaching, it's because I'm attending a mega event or some sort of other big event, and then I'll, plan how I'm going to get there and my trip around that. I haven't really gotten into planning things specifically to get specific caches yet, like Jessie has, because she's still looking for all those specific caches. I'm not quite there yet. But I have done it where I was going on a trip with family, and I went on a family reunion to Arizona last year, and I turns out we were only like 30 minutes from the oldest cache in Arizona, so I sort of planned a little bit around that. So a little bit of both, I guess. It really depends.
All right. Now, Limax is asking, do you take a laptop with you just in case? So maybe that's a good thing to talk about is what do you take on these multi-day trips for adjusting your itinerary? We'll start off with you, Shermaner. What do you take with you?
Yeah, I usually take my laptop with all the caches in GSAC that I want to get, so that way in case something does happen to your phone or your GPS, then you can still reload those if you have to. And I bring my GPS and my phone, so I'll have the files on both in case something happens, my phone goes dead or my GPS dies randomly or something like that.
And then Shorty Knits, what about your multi-day trips?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. I always have my laptop, and I bring my GPS and my smartphone. And then the other thing that I do is any files that I'm going to be using, whether it's my GPX files or offline maps, or notes for the trip, my itinerary, anything like that, I always have in Dropbox. So just in case I lose my
Nice.
printed copies, or who knows what could happen. I lose my phone and I have to go buy a new one. I I have it. So
Right, right. Butterfly Girl says that she takes her laptop with her in plans trips. I guess because trip plans are always subject to change. But Wet Coaster wants to back up a moment, Shorty Knits, and said school, work, family, and you have a social life as well?
well, caching is my social life. So
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. At least it gives you an outlet.
absolutely.
Yeah, I've kind of stopped taking the laptop with me on most of the trips. Just I don't end up using it much, and all of my caching now is from the phone, so it's like the phone and the tablet are all I end up taking most of the time. If it is a longer trip, then yeah, I'll take the laptop with me, mostly because I still have to do like show editing and whatnot.
But it's a good point. At least bring two devices with your files on it, whether that be a phone and a tablet, a phone and a laptop, what have you, GPS and a phone, something so that there's going to be a problem with one of your devices. This is the age we live in. Always have a backup. If you want to get the caches done, if they're not that important to you, by all means, fly by the seat of your pants.
Sure. Yeah, well, Limax says he's afraid he needs to start taking two laptops with him. But the backup thing, that's also a nice...
A desktop and a server.
Right.
And then we need internet access, and we've got...
But having those printed pages is a great backup because, if you leave those in the car or whatever and you dunk your phone, at least you have the pages nice and dry, and you can still do your caches until you get to the next major city and can replace your phone.
Yeah, and I definitely would recommend always having a printed list of your caches that you plan on stopping at. And a lot of times I'll even like make notes. These are the must-dos. Absolutely 100% have to stop at these, and then I'll have notes if we have time. Stop here, stop here, stop there, and then check them off as you go. And just a little bit for you. Make sure that when you leave one cache, you look at your list and you know where you're going next, especially if you're, 500 miles from home and next up is a webcam.
Make sure that
Because,
it's actually working.
no, make sure that you stop and you don't 20 miles past the webcam go, oh my God, we were supposed to stop in Chattanooga and we forgot.
I sense this has happened.
Did you go back?
No. we couldn't. It was late at night. We were already behind schedule. We had the 3 boys with us. So no, we said no. We'll just make a special trip to Tennessee.
Well, this is one of the reasons I like using Navigon on these trips. And Navigon on Android really doesn't work very well, so I don't think I recommend it for Android users. But on iOS, it's a great app for keeping track of all of those points. You know, you class out the whole route. It gives you the alerts and all of that kind of stuff that you'd expect. But it also lets you email those routes. So I email those routes to myself, and that way I have it as a backup, and I can do it on the tablet or on the phone. And it does work on Android. It's just I don't like it as much on Android. It's on Android I still think I like Google Maps better. But I've not had the experience with Google Maps in multiple routing because that's a newer function. But I know that they do have the option now in Google Maps where you can do it with the multiple destinations online and pull that up on your phone.
Yeah.
So it's a great way to go to do all of your planning like on your computer.
Right.
And then just bring that up right on the phone.
Yeah, I do like that feature. My one complaint about Google Maps, I love the mapping. It's accurate, it's nice, it's fast, it shows you as you're driving, you could take this route and it'll be 2 minutes longer, or, you know, I really like the features of it. The problem with it is it's a data hog. So for those of us on a limited data plan, you know, I had to stop using Google Maps when I did away with my unlimited plan.
Yeah, that's definitely good advice. And there is some options to cache the maps, but I've never played with that. Have you mentioned or have you had a chance to do any of that?
No, I know that's an option, but I haven't tried that. I think mostly what the issue is that it's constantly, because every intersection you come up to, it looks at the route. What happens if you take that way? What happens if you take that way? So it's constantly refreshing your route. So I think that's where most of the data usage lies.
See, I thought it was coming from the map tiles. Yeah, and it does send data back and forth about the current traffic conditions.
Right.
So, you know, if you turn off traffic, I know that improves the data usage a lot, but you also lose the cool feature about having Google Maps that says, hey, there's an accident up here, we're going to route around it.
Right.
And I should mention that that's one of the reasons I like Navigon is all of the maps are downloaded to the device. There is no live map downloads. So you have to have everything downloaded, and like when I went to Pennsylvania, there were a number of times that we lost all reception, and we couldn't use, you know, Google Maps or anything like that because there was nothing to, you know, talk to. So that's a nice feature about the.
It's a nice feature, but if you decide to jump over a state just because, you know what, I don't have New York, let's go there. You didn't cache the maps. You're out of luck. So,
right, and that's a good tip too. Is make sure you have all of the adjoining states downloaded, all of those adjoining regions, because it's not necessarily states that you may be traveling to.
That's true.
Like, you know, great example is when you go into Canada from the U.S. If you're a U.S. Citizen with a U.S. data plan, chances are you're going to be spending boatloads of cash to go into Canada. So you turn your phone into airplane mode if you've got the caches or the map tiles cached, downloaded, whatever, in whichever app. You can still use that for navigation, even though you're not using the data.
Yeah, and that's what I did when I came up to see you, Daryl, when we went up to Canada. That's exactly what I did.
And
the Shermanator, who just was in Canada today, is nodding her head.
Right, and we had the luxury of at the riverfront being able to get the towers from Detroit, but like just on the other side of the street, you'd lose the data.
Yeah, I was just there today, and I actually still got New York cell coverage even when I was in Canada, because I was just right along the border, basically.
Right,
so I
but if you
have to be offline.
Did you notice if you tuck behind the building, it goes away?
I didn't notice that, no. I think it's probably different depending on, you know, what cell service you have, but mine was fine. I was able to text people, and my maps still worked and everything, so I didn't have an issue with it.
Sure, but yeah, it all all of the carriers will have more problems when you go behind the buildings because, well, you got that big thing there to collect all the radio waves and keep them from making it to your phone.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think we've given people a lot to think about, but in parting, Sydney, you want to give us one tip maybe for trip planning that people should remember?
Just one?
Yeah, just one key tip. Or just
really
any
hard.
random tip maybe.
Well, I think like Jesse said, you have to really figure out what kind of trip you're thinking of doing. You know, what type, whether you're going for a cache type or whether you're finding caches to fill Jasmer or something like that. So you really have to, the first thing to do is to figure out what type of trip it's going to be, and then you can figure everything else out from there.
And then Shorty Knits, any tips there?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, plan as much as you can and want to. I mean, maybe your trip is let's just go and see where we go. But also know that no matter how much you plan, it's obviously never going to go as you planned. So always have a backup and be prepared to have to change your plans at the last minute.
Excellent. All right. So thank you very much, girls, for joining us today, giving us some insight. And we'll definitely have to have you back on to talk about some of the other things, including, Jesse, I definitely want to get you back on at some point to talk about challenge caches.
Sure.
Because I know you're going to have some opinions on the new rules, too.
Yeah, maybe a few. You know me, I loved challenges, so yeah.
And Shermanator 18, we know you're going to start your own podcast eventually, so we'll talk to you on your podcast, too.
We'll see, Daryl.
All right. Well, thanks again. And Chris, why don't you talk about what shows we've got coming up?
You know, Daryl does such a good job planning these out and talking about topic. Daryl, take another bow. You do a great job. So, next week on show 231, we're talking about tips and tricks. It's not like we just talked about tips and tricks on this show, but on that one, we're talking about more. And that's your tips and your tricks. June 9th is show 232. We're going to have the other half of Shorty Knits and a Canadian cacher, goes by the name of Land Monkey. You probably heard him. And they're going to argue about GPSR versus smartphone. June 16th, we're talking all about GeoGearHeads. That's the Geocaching International Film Festival. June 23rd, we're talking with geocaching.com headquarters about search.
Check the Cachemaniacs website at cachemaniacs.com for more on the GeoGearHeads, including show notes for this and all of our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so leave us feedback by emailing geogearheads at cachemaniacs.com or through social media. Your support helps keep the Cachemaniacs shows coming. Please consider becoming a patron through the link on our website to support the Cachemaniacs shows. GeoGearHeads is produced by Chris Offenauer and Daryl Wanberg. This show is copyright 2016 by Daryl Wanberg. All rights reserved.
Cash with the Cachemaniacs.